Hey everyone, this is Daniel, and today's video is Introduction to Power Automate Child Flows. Now before we go into child flows, I do have to spend a little bit of time on talking about solutions because child flows option is only available in a solutions. And then after that, I'll deep dive in first building a solution. Then I'll build two child flows and how both of them are called from a parent flow. And this will start giving you examples of how you can plan this in your own environments. So stick around, this is a very important video. But first, here's my intro video. So let's talk a little bit about solutions. Now, solutions for an overview is a great way to package all your content over so that you can actually move it from one environment to the other. Now, packaging content includes everything. It includes Power Apps, it includes flows, it could include chatbots, it could include your Dataverse tables, it could include your lookup or choice type columns. All of those can be packaged together as a solution. And this really helps in the whole application lifecycle management or the ALM process for the solutions. Now that's just an overview, and there's a lot more about solutions. If you are interested, I'll put that link in the below, and I might even create a whole separate video on that topic. But there's one more important thing that I want to talk about from solutions. Solutions are of two types. There is managed and unmanaged. Now, as the name suggests, once it is managed, which means you've done working, you've done managing the solution, that's the one that you want to package together and move it to your production environment or your production tenant. And the reason for that is that right in the production, you don't want to be messing with all those apps and flows. You don't want to make changes on the fly, and therefore a managed solution cannot be edited or modified. The only one that you can modify or edit is the unmanaged solutions. And therefore your non-production environments, that's the place where you want to create a unmanaged solution. And that's what I'll be building over here. So now that we've talked about solutions, let's switch over to the key item of this video, which is about child flows. And as the name suggests, this is going to be the whole parent-child type of a relationship. And the most important thing is that child flows can only be created inside a solution, which means that you cannot go outside your regular solution, like the ones you've always gone and created a flow in different environments. You can't create one over there. In fact, I'll prove it to you that those child flows actions are not even available. They are only available in a solution. So the examples that I'm going to show you is of two types. One is we'll go ahead and actually sign in as different accounts. So I'm actually going to sign in as what I call as a do not reply account. And the do not reply account will be used to create a very general Outlook mail. It'll already have the header, it'll already have the footer. The only thing that will be sending from the parent is the body. That way you can always use that same template again and again, and it can be reusable, hence the child flow. The second example is a child flow which is always making the exact same HTTP connection again and again. The only thing we're going to do is we're going to, from the parent side, is send that little information, like, hey, what is the HTTP connection going to send, and what is the information that's going to be returned. That will be sent by the parent. So I'll show you these two examples, and we'll go and make all these flow together. So just as a quick recap, we talked about solutions, we talked about the difference between the child flow and the parent flow, and how this can be done only in a solution. Now, let's start building it from scratch. Now, there are two prerequisites to building a solution. One is you need Dataverse, so that's the important one. And second one is that you need to have a version of your Dataverse tables. Basically, an environment has to be of a certain version. So it's 9.1.0.267. That's the one that you need. So most of your environments should already be of that version, but if not, just make sure that it is that, because otherwise you'll have to create a new environment, make sure it is either that or newer, and that's where you can go and start building these solutions over here. So just keep that in mind. So one of the things that it said is it needs Dataverse. So what I'm doing as a precaution, and just as a good practice also, is creation of the solution. I'm logging in as myself because I have the Power Apps per user license. And that's just a good practice because if a Dataverse table had to be generated, which it requires, I've already got the correct license to do all of this. So kind of keep that in mind. Now, like I said, I've logged in into an environment, I've logged in as myself, I've got the Power Apps per user, I have signed into Power Automate, and for Power Automate, if you're automatically on or default in home, just slide to the bottom, and you can see solutions over here. So we are going to now create a new solution. So I'm going to call this as a new solution, and I'm going to call this as my child flows, all right? So remember, when you start typing in from a display, the name automatically will remove that space, and that's required, all right? So don't go ahead and start changing in the name and putting in some spaces over there, because it'll start giving you an error that, hey, your name needs to be changed. Now here is something you can select. Publisher is basically, as the name suggests, is who is the one who is publishing this solution. It also kind of has another name is who's the owner of the solution. That's where the publisher comes. So there are some defaults already created over here, and you could use any of these defaults. However, I'm going to go ahead and actually create one of my own. So I'm going to now come to new publisher, and this is what the new publisher looks like. It's got a couple of important things. So I'm going to actually first call this as a publisher for DC. It's going to be Daniel Christian _ and I'll call that as child flows. And the moment I click in the description side, see the name doesn't get automatically updated like it did for the solution. So in this one, I can do a control C, I can do a control V, and I can leave that as is. Description, I can go and put it whatever I want. And then the prefix is completely up to you. So if you see some examples over here for MSDN, that's for Microsoft Dynamics. So you could take some examples over here and come up with your own prefix. Like for example, I have a company name and the company name has a prefix. So that's what I do is CFCS _, and I can just leave it at that. In fact, I don't need to put the underscore because you see right over there, it gives you this option that this is what it's going to look like. It gives you a preview. So you could put in your company name prefix, the abbreviation of a company, or you could even follow the same protocol as Microsoft does. Just come up with a plan for that. So now I'm going to click on save. And if you've done everything okay, we've not put any spaces, we've got to follow through it, it'll go ahead and now create this publisher option for us. And then we can come over here and now we'll be able to see it. So there you go, DC flows, we got that selected. And you can also go ahead and click on more options to see, is there anything else that I want to do? Yeah, one more thing you've got to check is what is the package type? It is unmanaged, which is what I said, because we are still building it. We are still developing this. I'm going to leave that as unmanaged. And now my solution is good. So I'm just going to go and create it. And here is where it goes ahead and creates the entire solution for us. And then there you go. The whole thing is created. It's the solutions, the name, when it was created, and all of it is done. So now I can go and click inside the child flows. This is where I am, and we can start building this example that I have over here. So the first child flow does one thing, and it does that very well, is it sends what I call as the do not reply email. And you guessed it, this is using the Microsoft 365 Outlook connector. So emails from here will always go from this do not reply mailbox, and it will have something very specific. Its body will always have that header saying that, hey, this is a automated response system, do not reply to it. And second, it will have like a footer, which means it will always have some important links, and it will have a signature. What we're going to send to this child flow, which is from the parent flow, are three important things. Two, which means who these emails are going to, the subject, and the body. And the body will just have that little section, because remember, it already has that header and little footer area. So that's the first child flow we're going to build. So let's go and do that one. Now, because I want that to go from a very specific account, I can't go ahead and sign in as myself. I got to sign in as the account from which the flows are going to go. So here's what I've done. I've actually gone ahead and signed in as an account. So here you go. I've signed in as what I call as the do not reply account of mine. And when I sign in over here, just to show you, I sign in as Power Automate, and I make sure that I'm in the correct environment. I go to solutions. In my solutions, I should see the new solution that we just created. So I'm clicking on the solutions, it loaded, there's the child flows. And now when I come into the flow, this is where I can start building that flow. And this is the do not reply. So we're going to use that Office 365 connector. So let's do that. I'm going to click on the plus new. I'm going to go and click on automation. In automation, I'm going to go to the cloud flow and I'm going to click on instant. When I click on the instant over here, it'll go ahead and actually start creating the same process. And we are familiar with this, the whole flow one. So this is going to be the manually trigger a flow. I'll go and click on create, and then I'll go in and actually start naming the process over here. So when I come now on top, the flow section is loading, and I'll go ahead and now name the flow, and I'll say this, send email using do not reply. And then in the manual trigger, I want three things. So the first, and they're all going to be of type text. So I'll click on the text one, and this is going to be 2. That's the email addresses that are coming through. Next one is going to be subject, the actual subject of that email that goes through. And then finally, the body. And so there you go. This is going to be the body. So these are the three things that I'm going to get. Now I'll click on new step. And in new step, I'm going to search for the Outlook. The Outlook is going to be specifically the Outlook 365 Outlook. And over there, we're going to go and send an email. That's the simple one. Now, this is the first time that I've actually gone ahead and created this Outlook action or step inside using this account. So it's also going ahead and creating the connection. In your case, you might have already used this connector with that account, so you don't have to go through this. That's just happening for only my situation right now. And as you can see, the step has been added and I have to go ahead and fill out some of these required ones. So for 2, I'm going to click on that and I'll go ahead and make sure that I actually get the 2 from the ones that we put the triggers over here. So in the manually section over here, manually trigger flow, I'll go and grab this 2. For the subject, I'll go ahead and actually get that subject again from here. It'll be right over there, this subject. Now in the body, I want to do it something really different. This is where it's going to be the main deciding one, is what is the body that we are sending. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a header first of all. The header is going to come over here, subject body. And I'm just doing a lot of copying and pasting. But this is what it's going to be. Is first there'll be a header because this is coming from a do not reply mailbox. So I'll put this header over here, the text, and I'll go ahead and make it a little bigger, bold. And this is pretty much normally what you see from an automated mail system. Sometimes you see, this is an automated reply, an automated response, do not reply to it. You see such things over there. Now that in between, I'll go ahead and actually grab the body itself. I'll go ahead and put in the body right here, all right? Then I'll go ahead and put in another paste. And then after that, I'm going to put in some other information. So a great example, again, I'll go ahead and copy and paste and we'll read it together. Is right over here. I'm going to say, since this is coming from an automated system, I want to put in some information. Is that for things such as for more information, go ahead and either chat with an automated bot or post a message on the Yammer community, which is the official Yammer community, or call the support to go ahead and actually ask for Power Platform support. So I'm just going to make sure I change that spelling over here. But all in all, you understand what I'm doing is that in the body, I'm already putting the header of the body. I'm already putting the footer of the body. The main body content, the actual meat and potatoes of the body content, is something that will be sent from the parent flows. And honestly, from here section, the last piece that is always required for any child flows is we've got to put a response to it. So for the response, I'm going to search for Power Apps right here. And in the Power Apps, there is this response to a Power App. That's the one that I'm going to put in. And for now, just to make sure that the flow can actually be completed successfully, go ahead and type in something like this. I put in response and I go ahead and put in as successful. That's basically it. And because you've gone ahead and completed this way, it will now allow you to save it. If you don't go and put in the final response, it's actually going to ask you for that, hey, I need some kind of response. So it'll go ahead and save it. Now, once it's done saving, there's something very interesting that I want to show you. So let's actually go outside a little bit, right? So I'm going to go out over here and now the flow is actually created. This is actually the flow that's created. Now, did you notice something? That even though this was a brand new solution that we created, this was the first actually object that we added, which was the cloud one. Why are there 2 over here? Let's go take a look at it. So when I go and take a look at the 2 over here, what it did is it actually went ahead and created the Office 365 Child Flows connector section. So let's go take a look at what that is. It automatically picked up that, hey, you are making a connection to an Office 365. So it's going to factor that connection in. This is very important from a solution standpoint. As you package the solution and you're moving it to another environment, it will go ahead and move this connector with you. This is awesome from what solutions does because it's factoring in whatever connections that you have and how those connections also will have to be managed together. So when you manage it or migrate it from one environment to another, you don't miss anything. This is very awesome from a solution standpoint. So thought I'll call that out. Next thing that I want to call out is the flow itself. So we click on the flow. The flow goes ahead and opens up. It looks very much something like the same. However, this is the new piece that you will see. You will only see this solution section or the solution little category over there in flows that have been built from a solution standpoint. This is what it is. It comes ahead and actually says that, hey, this is a solution and the solution name is called child flows. And by the way, this is not managed. This is the little additional piece that you see for all the flows that are building in solutions. Same thing from the Power App standpoint as well. It's just that this is the look and feel that you get from the flow standpoint. All right, cool. So let's go and now actually create, now the second one is that one, I'm going to create a child flow. That's how I'm going to go and make that HTTP call. So for that second child flow, I'm going to come back over here to my new. I'm going to go ahead and click on the automation. I'm going to click on the cloud flow and I'm going to click on the instant. Now in the instant for this one, I'm going to call that, again, it's going to be from the manually trigger a flow. So that's going to be the same. And then the manually trigger the flow, once we're coming in, we'll actually go ahead and name it. So one of the fun things I do is I actually always make an HTTP connection to a website called rebrickable.com. It's to do with Legos. So it's got an API, and in that API, I can send it the Lego part number, and I can get all the information back about the Lego part number, including a link to the image of the Lego part number. And so that's what I'm going to do. Is I'm making an HTTP call to rebrickable.com, and along the HTTP call, I'm going to send the Lego part number. And that is going to be where the parent-child information happens. Because in this child one, it does one job, and it does it really well. Is it takes the Lego part number, It sends it to rebreakable.com. It gets the URL for the image and it sends it back to the parent. And we'll do this again and again and again because that's the whole problem, the reuse for the child flow. So this one, I'm going to go and call this as the HTTP call for Lego part number. In the Lego part number itself, the trigger or the input actually is going to be what's called as a Lego part NO for number. And that's basically it. That's the only one that I need over here. Next, I'll also go and create a variable of type string. So I'll click on variable, click on the variables over here, and I'm going to go and initialize a variable. My initialize a variable, I'm actually just going to call that as a var Lego part NO for number. This will be of a type string. And then I'm just going to go and select that. I'll go over here to the ellipsis. I'll go and actually rename it. And I'll just put in this one over here, initialize the Lego var variable number variable. Now that I've got something, I can actually just go and save it. That way I'm not losing all of my information. And there we go. We've done with at least the initial piece of it. Now let's go and actually do that HTTP. So I'm going to click on HTTP. This is going to be an HTTP over here. And all we're going to do is use this HTTP connection. Ignore the Swagger, ignore the webhook. We're going the primary one, which is the HTTP. Now this HTTP is of a type GET because I'm getting information. So I'm going to go and get a type GET. And then here is my URI. My URI is of a concat one because I'm going to do it this way. Watch what I'm doing. Because here's what I need to do is I need to be able to send this request type URL. So I'll open up another tab so you can actually see what that is I should be able to send this type of URL. Moment I hit it, this is the data that I want to get back. And specifically, this is the URL for the image. So when I actually go and see this image, I'll go and do a Control C, open up another tab, paste it. This is the type of image that I want to return. This is how I'm going to do an API. And that's why I'm building this as a child flow, because it'll do this one thing and it'll do it really well. And therefore, I need to be able to make this HTTP call, and I'm going to do it as a concat. So watch how I'm going to do this concat. I'm going to put this as a concat, and in the concat, I'm going to go ahead and open the brackets, open it and go to the right, outside the closing brackets, get back in, and I'm going to go and now put in the first URL basically, and I'll actually put this in the chat over here, in the OneNote, so you can actually see what's going on. And I'll actually put this in this notepad so you can actually see what I'm doing. Like here, this is the first section I want to go and copy. So I'm going to make sure I select the correct, highlight the correct one, which is right here. I'll go and do a Control C. That's the first one. Oops, I missed that one. Let's go and get that back again over here. Expressions, let's do a concat. Right over there in the concat, click on that, open the brackets, it also closes it. And then the first one is right here. This is my first concat. After that, I'm going to go and put a comma, and I'm going to go and grab that variable. This variable should be somewhere at the bottom. This is it. That's the variable. And then finally, at the end, I'm going to go ahead and put in another comma, open and close single brackets, and I'll go ahead and grab the last item over here. This is it. So that is basically how I'm going to go ahead and put in my entire URI, which is basically a URL. And that's it. That's all I have to do. I don't have to put anything else. This is going to send me that information. So good point right now is I'll go and click on save. And then afterwards, it's always a good one to go ahead and just put in compose, just so that you see the compose one. I go and grab the compose, and in the compose, I can actually go and select what is the body that is coming from here. And then after that, I'll be able to go ahead and do a run. Now, once I've already done some of these runs before, so I know one thing is that it sends me a whole bunch of information. But the only one that I want to go ahead and do is I want to parse a certain amount, which is parse the JSON. So all that I see is basically the link for that image. And to do that, I actually going to go ahead and now put in the compose again. But in the compose, I want to go ahead and do the parse JSON. In the parse JSON. And in the parse JSON, again, I'm going to put in the body, which is right over here, that body. But in the body, I'm going to click on that, and I'll go and now paste this link over here. Now, you can do the same thing over there. Go ahead and run this flow. Then see actually the output that you get from this HTTP. You can actually see either the body directly from this action, or you can go ahead and see it in the compose. And that is how I go ahead and get this section code over here. Again, this is just an example, all right? You will have your own scenarios of what HTTP call is. But to prove the point, this is the example that I want to show you. Now, the final step is I've got to send this back into the parent. And so for that, I'll come into the next. I'll go ahead and now type in Power Apps. In my Power Apps, I click on this Power App, and I'll say respond to Power Apps. Now, the output one that is going back, I'm going to type that in as imgurl. And right over there is going to be the parse JSON one. And if I scroll down, if everything is correct, that's the one. I want to get the part image URL, that image's URL. So I got that. I'll click on save. Everything should be good. We're directly going ahead and saving it. It is saved. And now we've got 2 child flows already created. Just to make sure, if I go outside over here, we should now see 2 child flows created. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and do my parent one. And for that, I can sign in myself. I don't have to be through the service account. I'll go ahead and sign in myself. And just to make sure I can prove that, I'm right over here. And this is me. I am the one who's actually signed in. So now I'll come back over here and I'm going to go ahead and I'll create another flow. And this one doesn't have to be, the instant one. I'm just doing it for the demo. The trigger could be anything. It could be a new item added to a SharePoint list or a SQL table or a Dataverse, whatever that you think, a new form that is submitted. Just, I'm just doing it for this demo sake, all right? Okay, it's not a requirement for these child flows type of a scenario. So what I'm going to do is now I'm just going to call this flow as I'm going to get the Lego part number. And in the manual trigger, I'll actually put in the place where we're going to put that text in. So I'm going to say Lego part number. And that's because I'll submit the Lego part number over there. And then after that, I'm actually going to be sending out some emails to both someone who's submitting, and I'll show an example of how I can send it to somebody else. So what I'll do is I'll actually go ahead and make an Office get my profile, because I want to get the user who's triggering this. I want to get that user's profile. So there you go. I'm going to go ahead and get my profile, and that's all I need to do. Is again, this is the first time I'm using this account. This connector, so it's actually signing in. In your case, it might already be in. And that's the only step that I need from the get my profile, really nothing else. Now let's go ahead and now call that child flow. Now this is the proof that you are doing it inside solution. So I'm going to come to the plus new step and I'm going to call this as a run a child. And because you are in a solution, you see this run a child flow. If you were not in a solution, you would not find, when you do a search, you would just not find a run a child flow. I guarantee you. Go ahead, try it. It would not show up. It only works in solutions. And so the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to make that HTTP call to the rebreakable.com site. And so I'm going to click over there. And these are the only 2 child flows that I have in the solution right now. And so the first one is going to be HTTP call to Lego part number. Since I'm calling that child flow, it knows that in that child flow, it actually needs that request information over here. And so that one is going to come in from this manual trigger. So I'm going to scroll down over here a little bit, even go further. And that is where I'll go ahead and get this Lego part number. This Lego part number is coming in from that initial trigger. So that will actually get done successfully, all right? We'll see. Then after that, I'm going to run now second child flow. My second child flow is now to send that email from the do not reply account. So same thing, I'm going to call this as a run a child flow because I got to get the second one. Again, this is my proof that I'm in the solutions because I'll do that run a child flow. And over here, I'm going to go ahead and now say send an email using do not reply. Now send an email using do not reply. I got to give 3 things. First, I got to give in to who the email is going to, and then the subject, and then the body. So watch this. In the 2, I'll go ahead and get the mail of actually the person who has triggered this. So right over here, I'm going to go ahead and select mail. Now here, you can also put in some text information. So here's one example. I'm going to go and now type in my email address for this account. I went and actually just typed that in. I didn't have to go and make any connection, something, just type it in. Did that to show that how this works. Next, I'll go ahead and put in subject. I'll just go and paste this text over here. This is going to be that body, just that middle section of that body. And over there, I want to put in some text and I'll put in some dynamic content as well. So I'm going to start by saying hi. And in that hi, let's go and get that display name from Office 365 from my get my profile. So I'll go and get this display name, right? Then after that, I'll put in some verbiage. I'm just going to go and paste it right here. And I'm going to say below is the image of the Lego part number. That Lego part number is actually the one that we're going to type in. So I'll go and grab that in from right over here. The Lego part number, that is it. And here is the image, below is the image of the Lego part number you requested. So I'll close that in, put enter. And then now I'm going to put in a little bit of HTML code, and that HTML code will embed the image directly in that reply. So watch this. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to paste this. By the way, this is something I use w3schools.com, and W3 Schools go to HTML, and that's basically where I got this information. And all I need is that in the image, the src, that's where I got to put in the actual link. So the link is going to come from a response to this run flow. So let's go and take a look at the run flows. And that what I'm getting is a run a child flow, and it'll be in the correct place. Every once in a while, you just got to go through, a few times here and there, and you'll get the link perfect. But that is where the link needs to be. All right, so now I think I'm done, but it's giving me an error. It's saying that, hey, update the child flow for action run if flow 2 to not use run only connection. So there's a change that we've got to do over here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and remove this one, delete that for now, and then I'll go ahead and click on save, because we got to make sure that we don't lose the work that we've got to do. Also, I'll do a little bit of renaming. I'm going to click on rename over here, and I'll say run a child flow to get image of the Lego part number, right? So I'll go and do that, and I'll save it. Now I gotta go ahead and change the second child flow. I gotta go and manipulate that a little bit. Well, let's go take a look at that. So I'm gonna click out outside over here, and the second one, which is send an email using do not reply, click on it. I gotta go in over there. Once you're here, go to the bottom right. It says run only users. Click on edit, and that one, it says currently it's a child flow, but the connection is provided by run only user. Well, the child flow doesn't know who the user is because it's being triggered by the parent one. Therefore, in this child flow scenario for this connector, you got to come over here and select it using this connection. And it gives you this warning. It says, hey, users with only access will not control or have access to these connections outside the flow. This is more of an FYI. Hey, it's okay. You're not going and sharing this with the world, but it's giving you an FYI over here. Okay, it's giving you an okay. Now let's go and click on save. And now once you've saved it, let's go and add that last action back into that original flow over here. So I'm going to click on my flows. In fact, when you click on the flows, it takes you directly outside over here. What you could do is always go into your solutions. In your solutions, go to your solution, which is child flows. And in your child flows, let's go to that final parent one that we are building. And that's where we'll go and add the last step. So this was the last one. So I'll go and click on that, get the image. And then over there, I'll go and click on edit. We'll come back in and we'll run the last child flow. So I'm going to click back on the plus new step. And over here, I'm going to say run a child flow. Goes ahead and gives me the option that's run a child flow. In this one, I'm going to rename that a little bit. I'm going to rename that to run a child flow to send email on behalf of do not reply. And so that's exactly what I'm going to select. The child flow is send email using do not reply. I want to pause over here though. The child flow is not smart enough. It doesn't know what you're thinking, all right? So it's going to go and give you all the flows. You and I know that, hey, in this one, it's only the HTTP call for Lego part information and send email using do not reply. Those are the only two child flows. Power Automate doesn't know that. So when you're putting these names, all of these names in your solution, you might want to come up with the naming conventions or anything with the child. Maybe do it as a pre or a post fix. Like this is a child dash HTTP call to something else. Start thinking that way, because that'll really help you understand, oh man, which one is the child flow over here? Something to think about. All right, so now this one is going to be send an email with the do not reply. And then after that, it'll tell me the three things that it needs. So the ones we initially did was we actually go ahead and get the mail from here. So I'm going to go ahead and say mail, which is the same as email. And as the test that I did, I'm going to go ahead and type in that other email address. All right. This is just to prove a point that it can take both things, because at the end of the day, you are sending the information. So you can go and get this dynamic content. And as long as you put the semicolon, which is how Outlook emails work, you can also type in an email and multiple of these emails will go through. In the subject, I'm just going to paste a simple text over here. And then in the body, we're going to also go in combination of text, dynamic content, and some HTML. So I'm going to start by saying hi. And in the hi, I'm going to just get in the display name. The display name is actually the name of the person. So it's a hi, in this case, the display name. Then after that, I'll go and put in some text, which is, hey, below is the image of the part number. What was that part number? Well, we'll get the part number now from the actual trigger that we put in, which is right over here, the part number, which is the part number you requested. I'll put in as you requested. And then afterwards, I'm going to put in some HTML. Now for the HTML, it's actually very easy to go ahead and actually first put in the HTML. So here's the one I'm going to paste it in. And by the way, this HTML is something I got from w3schools.com. It's a very simple, very nice website to learn. And w3schools.com, I went and actually got the HTML code. Now here is the final thing that we need to work on. And this sometimes gets a little tricky. In this code, in this line, I want that the return of the first child flow to be posted over here. So let me show you what that means. I think it's on the top. Let me scroll all the way to the top. There it is. The image URL that we got from the first child flow, that image URL needs to be right over here between the double quotes. And so what I do is I come in and I click on the double quotes and I click on here and it'll work. Now, sometimes for whatever reason, you might actually have your command prompt at the end and this thing shows up at the end. If that happens, that's fine. Delete it. Make sure you've actually clicked over there in between the double quotes so your cursor is actually blinking there. then come to the dynamic content and click it. That is basically how it should work. And so now I'm going to click on save. And because we've gone ahead and now manipulated the actual child flow, this time we don't get that alert. This time it says everything is ready. But you know what actually proves it? Let's go ahead and run the flow. The first parent one manually. Let's put in a Lego part number and then see what happens. So I'm out in the same parent flow that we just created. I'm going to click on run. And in my run, it's going to go and do the first sign in. That only happens once. That's correct. I'll click on continue. And I'm going to put in a Lego part number. The part number that I know, one of them which is correct, is 3031. So I'll click on that. Click on run flow. Now when the flow is running, it is going ahead and running it. So when you go and click on it, let's see what happens, because it's interesting to see all these different flows that are happening. So the first one, it went and did the my profile get. Great. It went and ran that over there. Next one is it's actually going and doing from that HTTP call to get the information. So that's the flow that's running. Let's see if it works. It's taking a bit too long. So let me go into my solutions area. I'm going to click on done, and that's the child flow. So let's click on it and see what's going on. While this is going on, I'm saying, hey, there's actually a bunch of failures happening. So the child flow is failing. This is good. Let's go and troubleshoot. So what I'll do first on the original one, I'm going to go and cancel this. This is the parent one, so let me go and cancel it. All right. And I think I know what's going on, but we'll double check. So we'll come in now to the first one, and I'll click on edit. And when I click on the edit, we will actually, you know what, I did that too soon. Let's go outside again. Let's click on this failed flow. See where it is failing. It is failing in our HTTP. I bet you it's failing is because over here, we didn't complete the URL. So let me do that. Let me go into HTTP. And in my Lego part number, I need to actually put in this important step right over here. That is where we're actually sending in the Lego part number. There you go. See, because we went ahead and put in the concatenate, the actual formula. The actual variable. I went and put in the variable. See right there. I put in the variable, but I didn't assign a value to the variable. That was a rookie mistake. But anyway, I'll click on the save. I'll click on the save. I like this, troubleshooting it live over there. So you know that this is a very realistic, real world scenario. All right, so I'm going to go out over here. And then now I'll go back to our parent one. In fact, I can close, I'll keep this open and go back over here. Let's go back to the parent one and let's go and do another run. So I'll do the run. And in my run, I'm going to put in that same Lego part number, 3031, 1. And I'll click run flow. The flow triggers. Go and click on that one. Let's go see what's happening. Section away, child flow section over here. And the whole thing just finished that fast. Well, let's go see what happened. So I'm clicking on this side and it went ahead and got me the image URL, which means the first child flow ran successfully. The second child flow also ran successfully because it sent out an image. Well, I want to see what these emails look like. So the first email actually went directly to my account because I went and triggered it. So I'll click on this one and here it is. This is what that looks like. Now watch, we only went ahead and worked on this body part over here, right? Because the initial was the header and then there was also this information over here. These are the only two things that we worked on. But overall, the header worked. That's one user. The second user was also to Rosanna Christian. See right over here, this Rosanna Christian is the one we actually typed in. So if I go and now see over here, she also gets that. So that child flow took care of both of them for them. You were able to send the data to the child flow successfully. And there you can see it works right over here so well. This proves that the flow that we created, this parent one, worked so well because this is the parent one. All it had was 4 simple actions, but there were multiple actions inside the first child, inside the second child. They all triggered off correctly, well, after we troubleshoot them, and they send the information and it works really well. So as a quick recap, we went and actually learned what a solution is. I was able to walk you through that. Then we created 2 child flows and both of them are very unique scenarios. One was sending out an Outlook email, but using the do not reply account. Second one was using an HTTP call, and this will be constantly done on a repetitive way, but we send it the dynamic information, which was in this case the Lego part number. And then finally, both of the child flows were in the parent flow. Sure, we had to do a little bit of troubleshooting, but I did that on the fly. And now the parent and the child flows just worked. And did you notice how fast the child flows run? Well, it works. So hopefully this was helpful to you. And as always, keep using Power Automate. Hey everyone, hopefully you found this video useful. And if you did, can you help me help you? Can you subscribe to this YouTube channel? Because remember, I provide fresh content on a weekly basis and it's 100% free. So if you have subscribed, thank you so much and pass the word. But if you haven't, subscribe, click on the bell notification and let the learning begin.